Namaste and welcome back to Waking Up with Mindful Serenity. Yoga, if you want to say yoga, or just mindful serenity. I'm running very low on my little things in the jar here, but I'm going to pull out a concept from the jar and continue with that little exercise. I'll pull out a concept and I will speak on it for a few minutes. I'm not going to say how long. And the concept I pulled out, and I'm not sure if I've spoke about this before, is Shakti. Shakti? Did I do that one already? I don't know, but we'll do her again. I'm going to take a deep breath in and exhale. I'm going to talk about Shakti and what is Shakti. Shakti is the universal energy flow, I guess. In the body, it's often known as prana or chi, depending on your field of thought, and some people might say kundalini. But Shakti is the energy that makes everything what it is. When I think of Shakti, I automatically, that part of my mind that likes science goes to science and goes to what the physicists at CERN have discovered with the Higgs field and the boson. They've discovered that when they collide protons together at a super fast speed and a super fast or super strong impact, that amazing things happen. We get to see that the in between, what's underneath the subatomic particles that most of science to this date has seen as the be-all and the end-all. We can go even deeper now into these little things called bosons. And that takes us to what the Higgs field is. They recognize that beneath the subatomic particles, making up the subatomic particles, there is just a field of spacious vibrating energy. And in that vibrating energy, there is something called leptons and quarks, which are just in a form maybe like a vibrating, wanting to be matter, or vibrating fields waiting to be matter. And there is this boson that carries this particular force, a new force other than the four forces that we've known, gravity, electromagnetism, strong nuclear force, and weak nuclear force. We now have what this boson carries. And what it does is it makes these leptons and quarks into particle matter, as they've discovered. So we have underneath particle matter what we identify and sometimes so identified with as all we see is as our reality is that which is material or matter. We see beyond that now to this extensive, vibrating energy fields full of vibrating wavelets that are waiting to be matter. And it's from there that we have the emergence of protons and electrons and neutrons, and therefore atoms. And then these atoms we know become molecules, and these molecules, depending on how densely they are combined with whatever bonds they're combined with, ionic or covalent or whatever, become molecular structure, and molecular structure becomes the matter which we see. Now that, believe it or not, that Higgs fields that the physicists are discovering was discovered thousands and thousands of years ago by the yogic rishis in the Himalayan mountains. They would retreat up into the mountains, and there were 7 original ones, but I won't get into that. But I'm talking about the ancient rishis, where there was no laboratories or microscopes or anything like that. Their laboratory of soul research was their minds, and Yogananda came up with the term laboratory of soul research. So they would go into these caves, and instead of looking out with microscopes and measuring tools, scientific tools, they looked inward at their own minds, their own thoughts, their own internal experiences. And they've even gone beyond those down into the cosmos, explored the cosmos internally, from the macrocosmic understanding to the microcosmic understanding. And they went from matter to looking deep into that space that existed in matter. And they were the first to discover that, what we see as dense matter probably has more space to it than anything else. They've seen the space. And of course, that's called cautious probably in the yogic world, in the Akashic field. But we don't have to get into all those terms that people think woo-woo. We're just thinking they discovered that there was a lot of space to matter and nothing was as dense as it appeared. And they started exploring inward through thoughts and feelings and that type of still matter, still form, but a different type of form. And they went further and further to see that there was this one energy field, one vibrating, spacious energy field on which all things emerged. We call it the Higgs field in quantum physics. They called it Shakti. They called it the energy that makes up everything. Now, because we're all made of this one vibrating energy, they discovered that there was no separation. Science today looks at separation in all physical matter and compares one to another. But the ancient rishis discovered there was no separation. Everything was one because it came from the same vibrating field of energy, Shakti. Shakti is a very high frequency, very, very high frequency type of energy. And the scientists who discovered prana is too. That's why they had to use the great big thing at CERN to create the simulation of this bosons and whatever the bosons give. But in spirituality, we see this great big energy of Shakti vibrating through everything, creating unity and oneness. There's no separation. And Shakti flows through the body, as the yogis have discovered, in the form of prana. We see it is not just breath, but breath is, we breathe through this prana. Our heart beats through the Shakti prana. Our minds work through this Shakti prana. But it is a very high energy emotion. Many of us don't experience Shakti, even though it is our natural birthright. Like every object in this world, it runs through it. But because we're higher frequency, and we can handle higher frequency vibrations, say, than that chair can, we can experience the ultimate joy that Shakti involves. Love, joy, compassion. When we can do that, we have experienced Shakti, but we don't focus this amazing consciousness, which is, again, this field of energy at the basis of everything is consciousness. We do not use that consciousness to focus on the Shakti, so we therefore do not experience. We're too lost in our little stories and our ideas of what is and all this stuff that's broken up and to experience the reality of who we truly are at the Shakti level. This amazing energy that flows through. Now, the yogis have discovered, through their own inner reflections, the energetic body of the human being, which is made up of nadis, they call them, channels for that energy to flow through. The major channel is the Shushanam, which flows right through the center of the spine, and on either side we have the Pingala and the Ida. Other ways to allow the energy to come through, the prana to come through, which is a form of Shakti. We have so many different connections that get blocked because of our attention is focusing on trying to make sense of why we're here, and we develop these mental constructs that we call me, and these stories and these ideas of who we are and whatnot, so that we do not experience the free flow of that Shakti coming through us, which is joy, which is bliss, which is love. It belongs to the love emotions, all those high energy emotions. And we're so focused downward on our low energy emotions and our problems that little me is going through because we feel we're separated and whatever. We just don't recognize that there's this one infinite field of energy that vibrates to every single one of us. There is no separation. We are like waves on the ocean, cresting and troughing, falling back into the ocean. But why we're the wavelet, we forget that we're the ocean. We forget that the Shakti is what makes us who we are. And we do not experience it the way we should. So Shakti is something we're all meant to experience once we remove, clear out those energy channels, remove the blockages that are there from all our storing and stuffing of life events because we saw ourselves as little me's that needed to defend and protect and avoid and whatever, suppress and repress, and start allowing for that Shakti flow to come through. Because that is what enlightenment is all about. That is what the self-realization process is all about. Realizing who you are at the deepest level as a Shakti, as this energy flow. So it flows through. So everything gets cleared out. And we no longer have to be, so far from experiencing the Shakti of who we truly are. Well, I'm hoping that makes sense. Thank you so much for joining me, and I do hope you have an amazing day. Namaste.